She saved his life and gave him twin sons. I love you, my life, he said loudly, a heartwarming love story. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Before we begin, I need to say this. You are powerful. You are precious. And I'm so proud to call you family. You're not just watching. You're part of something bigger, something built on love, strength, and unbreakable connection. If you're hearing this, I don't just want you to comment. I need you to. Type, I'm here, and like this video right now. Don't wait. Don't scroll. Show me that this beautiful family is still standing strong, still united, still present. You are not just a viewer. You are my pride, my light, my heartbeat. I carry you with me in every word I speak, and I honor you with every story I tell. Now, receive this powerful prayer from my heart. May courage rise in you like the morning sun. May every pain give way to power, and every tear turn into strength. May your family be covered, your dreams protected, and your soul filled with peace. You are chosen. You are worthy. You are forever loved. Let's begin. With love, with power, with unstoppable family. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, casting diamond-like reflections across the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits. Nathan Miller adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a 35th birthday gift to himself, as he surveyed the annual gala he hosted for Miller Enterprises investors and partners. At 42, he commanded the room with the quiet confidence of a man who had built an empire from nothing, his tall frame and broad shoulders carrying the weight of his success with practiced ease. Your speech was impressive as always, darling. Nancy McGee Miller appeared at his side, her voice honeyed but her eyes cold. His wife of 5 years looked stunning in her crimson gown that accentuated her slender figure. Blonde hair swept into an elegant updo that showcased the diamond necklace he'd given her on their anniversary, a peace offering after another night of bitter silence. "Thank you," Nathan replied, the words automatic. He'd long stopped expecting genuine warmth from Nancy. Their marriage had become a perfectly choreographed performance for the public, while privately they lived as strangers inhabiting the same mansion. Nancy's perfectly manicured fingers traced his arm. "I ordered your favorite dessert, the chocolate soufflé with raspberry sauce." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You've been working so hard lately." Something in her tone made Nathan hesitate, but he nodded. 5 years of marriage had taught him to pick his battles, and tonight, with hundreds of eyes on them, was not the time for another disagreement. Across the room, Kim Rose balanced a tray of champagne flutes, navigating the crowd with practiced grace. At 28, she had spent a decade working in high-end restaurants, supporting herself since losing her parents at 18. Her dark skin glowed under the ballroom lights, her tightly curled hair pulled back into a neat bun that complemented her delicate features and expressive brown eyes. "Kim, they need you in the kitchen," her supervisor whispered as she passed. "The special dessert for the host table needs to be served." In the kitchen, Kim carefully arranged the soufflé on a silver tray. As she turned to leave, she noticed Nancy McGee Miller slip through the service entrance, glancing furtively around before approaching the dessert station. Kim paused, hidden behind a column, watching as Nancy pulled a small vial from her clutch and sprinkled its contents over one of the soufflés. Kim's heart raced. Had she really just witnessed Nathan Miller's wife poisoning his dessert? She'd heard the staff gossip about their troubled marriage, but this was unimaginable. Nancy disappeared through the door, and Kim stood frozen, unsure what to do. "Rose, table 1 is waiting." The kitchen manager's voice snapped her to attention. Kim approached the main table, her mind racing. She couldn't serve a poisoned dessert, but making accusations against Nancy McGee Miller without proof would cost Kim her job instantly, a job she desperately needed to keep her modest apartment. She placed the desserts before each guest, saving Nathan's for last. His eyes met hers briefly as she set down the plate, and Kim saw kindness there, unusual among the wealthy elites she served nightly. That settled it. She couldn't let this happen. "Sir," she whispered, "would you mind following me?" "There's an urgent call from your office." Nathan excused himself, following Kim to a quiet alcove near the kitchen. Before he could question her, she spoke rapidly. "I apologize for the deception, Mr. Miller, but I believe your dessert has been tampered with. I saw your wife add something to it from a small vial." Nathan's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation." "I know, sir. I wouldn't risk my job if I wasn't certain." Kim's voice trembled slightly. Nathan studied her for a long moment, considering the years of tension with Nancy, her increasingly erratic behavior, and the rumors she'd spread about his inability to father children, rumors he'd discovered were lies when a doctor confirmed his fertility was normal 6 months ago. "Thank you," he finally said. "I'll handle this." But as they returned to the ballroom, commotion erupted at the main table. Nancy stood with a concerned expression as a waiter examined Nathan's partially eaten dessert. "Nathan, thank goodness. I was just telling everyone you must have stepped away to take a call. Your dessert, I noticed it looked strange, and asked the waiter to check." Nancy's performance was flawless, her concern seemingly genuine. Confused, Nathan looked at the dessert, then at Kim, whose eyes widened in horror. "I don't understand. I watched your wife," Kim began. "This waitress is clearly confused," Nancy interjected smoothly. "Perhaps she's had too much to drink." Before Kim could defend herself, Nathan swayed suddenly, grabbing the back of a chair for support. His vision blurred as he looked at his water glass, half empty beside his place setting. "You didn't," he gasped, understanding flooding him as the room began to spin. Nancy's expression remained concerned for their audience, but her eyes flashed with cold triumph as she whispered, "You should have signed those additional company shares to me when I asked." Nathan collapsed into his chair, his breathing labored. Guests murmured with concern as Nancy announced, "My husband has been overworking. He's fallen asleep at events before. So embarrassing. I'll have our driver take him home." As security helped move Nathan toward the exit, Nancy slipped away, smiling apologetically to guests as she collected her clutch and wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. Kim watched in disbelief as Nancy disappeared through the main entrance. Without her husband, no one else seemed to notice anything amiss. The guests returned to their conversations, accepting Nancy's explanation of exhaustion for Nathan's collapse. But Kim had seen his dilated pupils, the bluish tint to his lips, signs she recognized from a first aid course. This wasn't sleep. It was poisoning. Following her instincts, Kim rushed after the security team, finding them waiting with an unconscious Nathan outside the service entrance. "Mrs. Miller said to wait for the driver," one explained. "She's bringing the car around." "Herself," Kim lied smoothly. "She asked me to stay with him while you return to your posts." Once alone with Nathan, Kim checked his pulse. Weak but present, she had to act quickly. Flagging down a taxi, she helped load Nathan's unresponsive form into the back seat. "Hospital. Now please," she directed the driver, her voice steady despite her racing heart. At the emergency room, doctors rushed to attend to Nathan, while Kim provided what little information she knew. When they asked for payment information, Kim realized she had nothing of Nathan's. No wallet, no phone, no identification. "I need to pay for his treatment," she insisted. "He's been poisoned." The hospital administrator looked skeptical. "That will be several $1,000s up front, miss." Kim reached for the delicate gold ring on her finger, the last gift her mother had given her before cancer took her away. The small diamond wasn't large, but the ring was all she had left of her family, kept through years of financial hardship because it represented everything she'd lost. Without hesitation, she slipped it off. Will this cover it? Hours later, as dawn broke over the city, Nathan Miller remained unconscious but stable. The doctors had confirmed poisoning, a powerful sedative mixed with something they were still identifying. Kim sat beside his bed, exhausted after answering police questions. She had given them Nancy's description, but without direct evidence, they seemed unconvinced by her story. Kim gently placed her hand over Nathan's. "You'll be okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure he could hear. "She won't hurt you again." In that quiet moment, something shifted in Kim's heart, a strange protectiveness toward this wealthy stranger whose path had crossed hers in the most unexpected way. Little did she know that her impulsive decision to help him would forever change both their lives, setting in motion a journey neither had imagined possible. Chapter 2. The Awakening. Consciousness returned to Nathan Miller slowly, like swimming up through dark water. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils as his eyelids fluttered open, revealing the unfamiliar white ceiling of a hospital room. For a moment, confusion clouded his mind. The last thing he remembered was the gala, his dessert, and then Nancy's cold whisper. A gentle movement beside him drew his attention. A woman with warm brown eyes and a kind face sat in the visitor's chair, her expression brightening when she saw him awake. "You're back," she said softly, relief evident in her voice. Nathan struggled to place her, then recognition dawned. "You're the waitress from the gala." Kim Rose nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "My name is Kim. Kim Rose." "What happened?" Nathan asked, his voice raspy from disuse. "How long have I been here?" 2 days, Kim replied. "You were poisoned, Mr. Miller. The doctors found a mixture of sedatives and something else in your system." She hesitated before adding, "It was your wife. I saw her tampering with your food, but she must have put something in your drink too." The events of that night came rushing back, and Nathan's jaw tightened. "Nancy," he murmured, the betrayal cutting deep despite their troubled marriage. He'd known they were unhappy, but he never imagined she would try to kill him. A doctor entered, interrupting Nathan's thoughts. After checking his vitals and explaining the treatment he'd received, the physician expressed amazement at his recovery. "You're very lucky, Mr. Miller. If you hadn't gotten to the hospital when you did, the outcome could have been much worse. This young lady saved your life." When the doctor left, Nathan turned to Kim with newfound appreciation. "You brought me here?" Kim nodded, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I couldn't just leave you there. Your wife walked out, told everyone you had simply fallen asleep. But I knew better." "Thank you," Nathan said, the words inadequate for what she'd done. "I owe you my life." Kim shook her head. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Nathan said firmly. "They wouldn't have." He'd spent enough time in high society to know how rare genuine compassion was. "The hospital. How did you manage everything? My wallet, ID, everything was in my jacket, which I'm assuming isn't here." A shadow crossed Kim's face, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Don't worry about that right now. You should focus on recovering." Nathan was about to press further when a nurse entered with discharge papers. "Mr. Miller, everything's been arranged for your release. Your bill has been settled, and you're clear to go home." "Bill settled?" Nathan questioned, confused. "By whom?" The nurse checked her tablet. "It says here, payment was made in full when you were admitted. The system shows it was handled by a Kim Rose." Nathan turned to Kim, who was suddenly very interested in straightening the edge of his blanket. "You paid my hospital bill? How?" "It's nothing," Kim said, standing abruptly. "I should go. You need rest, and I'm sure you want to contact your people." "Wait!" Nathan called as she headed for the door. "Please, Kim, tell me." Kim paused, her back to him. After a moment she turned, her expression carefully controlled. "I had something of value. It covered the cost. That's all." Before Nathan could respond, She slipped out the door, leaving him with more questions than answers. An hour later, as Nathan was preparing to leave, he approached the billing department. "I'd like information about who paid my bill when I was admitted 2 days ago." The clerk hesitated. "Sir, that information is confidential." Nathan fixed her with the same determined gaze that had closed million-dollar deals. "I'm the patient in question, and I need to know." After checking his identification, the clerk relented. "A young woman paid cash deposit for your initial treatment. The clerk paused, checking her notes. "She sold a piece of jewelry to the pawn shop across the street, a gold ring with a small diamond. The pawnbroker called to verify her story." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. Kim had sold jewelry to pay for his care? He remembered the simple gold band she'd worn on her right hand during the gala. Nothing extravagant, but clearly something she'd touched often, almost unconsciously. Days later, having spent time recovering in his penthouse and dealing with the fallout of Nancy's betrayal, Nathan found himself standing outside the Grand Plaza restaurant. Police were investigating Nancy, who had disappeared the night of the gala, emptying one of their joint accounts before vanishing. The betrayal stung, but strangely, Nathan felt more anger than heartbreak, further evidence of how hollow their marriage had become. Today, however, his mind was on Kim Rose. He needed to thank her properly and repay her for her sacrifice. The restaurant manager greeted him with nervous deference. "Mr. Miller, what an unexpected honor. How may I assist you?" "I'm looking for one of your waitresses," Nathan explained. "Kim Rose. She worked the gala last week." The manager's expression shifted to discomfort. "I'm afraid Ms. Rose no longer works here. She was let go." "Let go?" Nathan echoed, anger flaring. "For what reason?" "She abandoned her post during the gala," the manager explained, not meeting Nathan's eyes. "Left in the middle of her shift. We have strict policies. She left to take me to the hospital," Nathan interrupted, his voice carrying enough authority to make the manager shrink back. "She saved my life." I wasn't aware, sir. The circumstances weren't explained to us." "Give me her address," Nathan demanded. "I need to speak with her." "I'm sorry, sir. Company policy prevents me from sharing employee information." Nathan was about to argue further when a young waitress approached, glancing nervously between them. "Excuse me," she said quietly, extending a folded napkin to Nathan. "You might find this helpful." Nathan took the napkin, opening it to find an address written in neat handwriting. When he looked up to thank her, the waitress had already disappeared back into the restaurant. The address led Nathan to a part of the city he rarely visited, a neighborhood where small houses and apartments huddled close together, their better days long behind them. He parked his Aston Martin, drawing curious glances from children playing in the street, and followed the house numbers until he found a small cottage set back from the road, its paint peeling but its tiny garden well tended. Nathan hesitated at the gate, suddenly uncertain. What exactly was he doing here? What would he say to her? Before he could decide, the cottage door opened and Kim stepped out, dressed in worn jeans and a simple blue blouse. She froze when she saw him, surprise evident on her face. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice barely audible. "What are you doing?" "Here." Nathan took in her surroundings. The weathered cottage, the carefully maintained flower boxes, the single window with faded curtains. All speaking of someone who made the best of limited means. "I came to thank the woman who saved my life," he said simply, "and to return something that never should have been taken from her." As their eyes met across the small garden path, Nathan felt something shift inside him, a stirring of connection, unlike anything he'd experienced before. In that moment, standing before Kim's humble home, the wealthy CEO felt as though he had found something he hadn't even known he was missing. Chapter 3. sanctuary offered. The small garden path between them seemed to stretch for miles as Kim stared at Nathan Miller, the last person she had expected to see outside her humble cottage. The evening sunlight caught in his dark hair, casting a warm glow over his features that softened the hard lines of power and wealth she remembered from the gala. "How did you find me?" Kim asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "A waitress at the restaurant," Nathan replied, taking a step forward. "May I come in?" Kim hesitated. Her cottage was tiny, sparsely furnished, a stark contrast to the luxury Nathan Miller undoubtedly lived in. Pride made her want to refuse, but curiosity won out. "Of course," she said, leading him inside. Nathan ducked slightly to enter the low doorway, his tall frame immediately making the small living space seem even smaller. His eyes took in the worn but clean furniture, the carefully mended curtains, and the small vase of wildflowers on the coffee table, touches that made the cottage a home, despite its limitations. "It's not much," Kim said, unable to keep the defensive note from her voice. "It's lovely," Nathan replied, and to her surprise he seemed sincere. "You've made it beautiful." Kim gestured for him to sit on her only armchair while she perched on the edge of the sofa. An awkward silence fell between them, two people from entirely different worlds, connected by one extraordinary night. "I learned what you did," Nathan finally said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "The hospital told me about the ring." Kim's hand automatically went to her right hand, where the familiar weight of her mother's ring was noticeably absent. "It was nothing," she said softly. "It wasn't nothing to you." Nathan countered, his voice gentle. He opened his palm, revealing a small velvet box. "I believe this belongs to you." Kim's breath caught as Nathan opened the box, revealing her mother's ring, the delicate gold band with its modest diamond, catching the light just as she remembered. "How did you—" "I tracked down the pawn shop," Nathan explained. "Paid them a visit this morning." Tears welled in Kim's eyes as she carefully took the box, touching the ring with trembling fingers. "This was my mother's," she whispered. "Her engagement ring, the only thing I had left of her." "I know," Nathan said quietly. "The pawnbroker mentioned you were reluctant to part with it." Kim slid the ring back onto her finger, the familiar weight, both comforting and overwhelming after believing she would never see it again. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me." "It's the least I could do," Nathan replied. "You saved my life, Kim, at great personal cost." Kim wiped away a tear, embarrassed by her display of emotion. "It was the right thing to do." Nathan studied her for a moment, as if seeing something in her that others missed. "The restaurant fired you," he stated, rather than asked. Kim nodded, her jaw tightening. "For abandoning my post, though I suspect your wife may have had something to do with it as well." "Ex-wife," Nathan corrected. "Or she will be once the police find her." The divorce papers were already being prepared before the incident. An uncomfortable silence fell again, broken only by the distant sound of children playing outside and the gentle tick of Kim's wall clock. "What will you do now?" Nathan asked, glancing around the cottage. "For work, I mean." Kim straightened her, shoulders, pride returning. "I'll find something. I always do. I've been on my own since I was 18. I know how to survive." 18. Nathan's brow furrowed. What happened? Kim rarely shared her past, but something about Nathan's genuine interest made the words come easier. "My parents died in a car accident. There was no other family, no insurance. I had to drop out of college and start working." She gestured around the cottage. "This place belonged to an elderly neighbor who let me stay in exchange for helping her. When she passed, she left it to me in her will. It's not much, but it's mine." Nathan's expression softened with understanding and something else, admiration, perhaps. "You've been through a lot." "Everyone has their struggles," Kim said with a small shrug. "Even CEOs who seem to have everything, I imagine." A ghost of a smile touched Nathan's lips. "Touché." Just then, a loud crash from overhead made them both jump. Water began to drip through a growing stain on Kim's ceiling, quickly forming a steady stream. "Not again," Kim groaned, rushing to place a bucket under the leak. "I'm sorry. The roof's been needing repairs for months." Nathan was on his feet immediately. "Do you have more buckets? Towels?" Together, they scrambled to contain the water as the leak worsened, the spring rain pounding harder on the failing roof. Within minutes, Kim's living room floor was dotted with containers catching water from 3 separate leaks. "This isn't sustainable," Nathan said, looking up at the worsening ceiling. "The whole structure could be compromised." Kim pressed her lips together, fighting frustration. The roof repairs would cost more than she had saved, and with no job, her options were limited. "I'll figure something out. I always do." Nathan turned to her, decision written across his face. "Come stay at my place." "What?" Kim stared at him, certain she had misheard. "My penthouse has 6 bedrooms, and I live alone," Nathan continued. "Stay there while you get back on your feet and get this place properly repaired. I couldn't possibly—" "It's not charity," Nathan interrupted, anticipating her objection. "Consider it repayment for saving my life. Or if you prefer, you can help organize my home office. My assistant quit last month and everything's a disaster." Kim looked around at her flooding cottage, the home she had worked so hard to maintain, now betraying her when she could least afford it. Pride warred with practicality in her mind. "It would just be temporary," she said slowly, testing the idea. "Of course," Nathan agreed. "Just until you find a new job and can afford the repairs here." A particularly large chunk of plaster chose, in that moment, to crash down into one of the buckets, splashing water across the floor. Kim closed her eyes briefly, accepting defeat. "I'll need to pack some things," she conceded. An hour later, with Kim's essential belongings packed into 2 worn suitcases, they stood outside her cottage. She locked the door with trembling hands, feeling as though she was abandoning a friend. "In need, it'll be here when you're ready to come back," Nathan said gently, understanding written in his expression. The drive to Nathan's penthouse passed in relative silence, the contrast between Kim's neighborhood and the gleaming downtown. Towers growing more stark with each passing block. When Nathan's car pulled into the private underground garage of the city's most exclusive residential building, Kim felt increasingly out of place in her simple jeans and blouse. "Don't worry," Nathan said, noticing her discomfort as they entered the private elevator. "No one will bother you here." The elevator opened directly into Nathan's penthouse, and Kim couldn't suppress a small gasp. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a breathtaking city view, while minimalist furniture in muted greys and blues created an atmosphere of understated luxury. Everything spoke of wealth, but also of emptiness. No personal photos, no mementos, nothing that truly made it a home. "It's beautiful," Kim said honestly, "but it doesn't feel lived in." Nathan set her suitcases down, considering her words. Nancy was in charge of the interior design. She preferred the magazine look. Kim nodded, understanding more than he said. This wasn't just a living space, it was a showroom, designed to impress rather than comfort. "I'll show you to your room," Nathan offered, leading her down a hallway with the same immaculate, impersonal design as the main living area. The guest room he opened was larger than Kim's entire cottage, with its own ensuite bathroom and a view overlooking the city park. Plush carpet cushioned her steps as she entered, running her fingers over the silky bedspread in awe. "Will this be comfortable enough?" Nathan asked, and Kim nearly laughed at the understatement. "It's more than enough," she assured him. "Thank you, Nathan." It was the first time she had used his first name, and something in his expression shifted at the sound of it. A softening around his eyes, a slight parting of his lips that made Kim suddenly aware of how alone they were. "Well," Nathan said, clearing his throat, "I'll let you get settled. The kitchen is fully stocked if you're hungry. Make yourself at home." As he turned to leave, Kim called after him, "Nathan." He paused in the doorway, looking back at her expectantly. "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" she asked, needing to understand his motives. Nathan considered her question, his answer coming slowly, thoughtfully. "When I woke up in that hospital, a bed, and learned what you'd done, selling something precious to help a stranger, it reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that there are still good people in the world." He met her eyes directly. "I spend my days surrounded by people who want things from me. You're the first person in a very long time who gave something instead." With that, he left Kim alone in the luxurious room, his words settling around her like a warm embrace. As she unpacked her modest belongings into the spacious closet, Kim tried to make sense of the strange turn her life had taken. Just days ago, she had been a waitress struggling to make ends meet. Now she was staying in the penthouse of one of the city's wealthiest men, a man whose life she had saved and who had, in his own way, saved hers in return. That night, as Kim stood by the guest room window gazing at the glittering city below, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her heart. Not just gratitude for Nathan's kindness, but something deeper and more frightening. The first tremulous flutter of feelings she couldn't yet name, for a man she was only beginning to know. Chapter 4. Heart's Awakening. Golden morning light spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nathan's penthouse, illuminating the sleek kitchen where Kim stood preparing breakfast. 3 weeks had passed since she'd moved in, and already the space had transformed, the once sterile environment now vibrant with life, infused with her presence. Nathan lingered in the kitchen doorway, taking in the sight before him. Kim moved, with effortless grace, humming a melody he didn't recognize as she flipped pancakes with practiced precision. Her simple sundress complemented her rich brown skin, her natural curls framing her face instead of being pulled back in the severe bun she'd worn as a waitress. The metamorphosis struck him, from the hesitant woman who had first crossed his threshold to this confident presence brightening his mornings. "That smells incredible," Nathan remarked, finally stepping into the kitchen. Kim turned, her smile reaching her eyes in a way that sent a current through his chest. "Morning. I hope you don't mind. These blueberries were about to go to waste." "Mind?" Nathan chuckled, accepting the steaming mug she offered. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, sending a jolt of awareness through him that lingered well, after the brief contact ended. "I can't remember the last time someone cooked breakfast for me. Not even—" Kim stopped herself, the unspoken name hanging between them. "Nancy had a strict policy against doing anything that didn't involve spending money," Nathan replied wryly, settling against the counter. "Especially anything related to domesticity." Kim placed a plate before him, the pancakes perfectly golden, steam rising with the scent of vanilla and fresh berries. "I enjoy cooking. Feels like a small way to thank you for everything." "The organization work you've done is more than enough," Nathan countered. Over the past weeks, Kim had transformed his chaotic home office from a paper labyrinth into an efficient workspace, implementing systems his previous executive assistants had deemed impossible. "Actually, that's something I wanted to discuss with you." Kim settled across from him, curiosity evident in her expression. "Oh?" "I'd like to offer you a position," Nathan stated directly, "as my personal assistant." Her fork hovered midway to her mouth. "Me? But I've never worked in an executive environment." "You possess what my last 3 assistants lacked: practical. Sense, organizational instinct, and most importantly, integrity. Nathan savored a bite of pancake, the perfect balance of tartness and sweetness spreading across his palate. Beyond that, I trust you. After everything with Nancy, that's not something I take lightly. Since Nancy's betrayal and disappearance, with company assets, Nathan had retreated behind careful defenses. The investigation continued, but her trail had gone cold, leaving only questions and wariness in its wake. Kim studied him intently, her gaze searching. "Is this offered out of pity?" "Absolutely not," Nathan replied, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "It's based on merit. The salary is substantial, enough to renovate your cottage entirely, not just the roof." He held her gaze. "Consider it." No pressure, their conversation drifted to the position's details with an ease that continued to surprise Nathan. In mere weeks, they developed a rhythm of coexistence that felt more natural than anything he'd experienced in 5 years of marriage. He found himself anticipating their shared meals and evening discussions with a pleasure that eclipsed any business engagement or social function. That afternoon, dark clouds marshaled their forces over the city, and the sky unleashed a spring deluge. Nathan stood at the wall of windows in his living room, watching lightning transform the cityscape into a momentary silver photograph, then vanish. "What a perspective," Kim murmured, approaching with 2 steaming mugs. Nathan accepted his gratefully. One of this place's few genuine appeals. There's something humbling about watching nature's power from this vantage point. A lightning bolt fractured the sky, followed instantly by thunder that vibrated through the glass. Kim startled, tea sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her mug. Sorry," she said with an embarrassed laugh. "Thunderstorms and I have never been friends. My cottage used to creak so loudly during storms, I was convinced it would collapse." "The building's lightning protection system is state-of-the-art," Nathan assured her. "We're completely safe here." Another thunderclap boomed overhead, and Kim flinched instinctively. Without conscious thought, Nathan slipped his arm around her shoulders in a protective gesture. She tensed briefly before relaxing against him, her warmth penetrating his thin dress shirt, awakening nerve endings he'd forgotten existed. "My mother had a theory about thunderstorms," she said, her voice soft against the drumming rain. "She told me thunder was just angels rearranging furniture. In heaven." Nathan found himself smiling at the image. "And the lightning?" "Them taking photographs of their new decor," Kim replied with a quiet laugh. Somehow it made the storms less frightening. Their eyes met, and Nathan became acutely conscious of their proximity. Her shoulder fitting perfectly beneath his arm, her face upturned toward his, close enough that he could detect the faint cinnamon scent of her lip balm. A different kind of electricity pulsed between them, more potent than the storm's display. Kim's phone trilled, shattering the moment. She stepped away to answer, and Nathan felt her absence like a physical loss. "The contractor," she explained, after ending the call. "He can begin work on my cottage roof next week." "That's excellent news," Nathan responded, ignoring an unexpected twinge at this reminder of her temporary status. "My driver is at your disposal whenever you wish to check the progress." Kim nodded, turning back toward the storm-darkened sky. "Thank you for everything." That night, after Kim had bid him good night, Nathan found sleep elusive. The penthouse, once an empty showcase, now bore evidence of Kim's presence everywhere. A novel with a bookmark on the side table, a delicate scarf draped over a chair, the lingering essence of her jasmine shampoo in the hallway. Abandoning the pursuit of sleep, he headed toward his office to review acquisition proposals. Passing through the living room, he noticed a desk lamp still illuminated and moved to switch it off. What he saw stopped him mid-stride. Kim had fallen asleep on the sofa, an open book resting on her chest, one arm curved gracefully above her head. In sleep, her features relaxed completely, her lips slightly parted, dark lashes creating crescents against her cheekbones. The lamplight bathed her skin in amber warmth, revealing her in a way that suspended Nathan's breath in his lungs. Of course, he'd recognized her beauty from the beginning. He wasn't oblivious. But witnessing her like this, unguarded, peaceful, utterly authentic, awakened something he'd thought permanently extinguished after years in his emotionally barren marriage. Desire, certainly. But something deeper pulsed beneath it. Tenderness, protectiveness, a longing that transcended physical attraction and reached towards something he hesitated to name. Moving with silent care, Nathan retrieved a cashmere throw from a nearby chair and gently draped it over her sleeping form. As he straightened, his hand moved independently of conscious thought, hovering just above her cheek, wanting to touch, yet respecting the invisible boundary between them. Kim stirred slightly, murmuring something indistinct, and Nathan withdrew. His hand, what was he thinking? She was his guest, soon possibly his employee. She had saved his life, but that didn't grant him license to complicate her situation with feelings she might not welcome or return. Retreating silently, Nathan returned to his bedroom, knowing sleep would prove even more impossible now. In the darkness, Kim's image remained, asleep in soft lamplight, vulnerable yet strong. Beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with conventional standards and everything to do with her essential self. What Nathan couldn't know was that Kim had awakened at his approach, had remained perfectly still as her heart accelerated when he covered her with the blanket, had felt his presence linger above her, had wondered in that suspended moment what his touch might feel like against her skin. As the storm continued its percussion against the windows, two people lay awake in the same apartment, separated by walls and propriety and their own uncertainties, yet connected by a current neither was quite ready to acknowledge, but neither could deny. Chapter 5. Barriers breaking. The first light of dawn filtered through the blinds as Nathan stood in his private gym, punching the heavy bag with controlled force. Each strike helped clear his mind of the confusing feelings that had kept him awake most of the night. For weeks, now Kim's presence in his home had awakened something within him, a longing for connection he'd thought himself incapable of after Nancy's betrayal. "You're up early." Nathan turned to find Kim in the doorway, dressed in running clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Even without makeup, her natural beauty made his heart skip a beat. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted, steadying the swinging bag. "You run?" Kim nodded. "Every morning before sunrise, back when I lived at the cottage. I've missed it." "The building has a private running track on the 20th floor," Nathan offered. "Security access only. It's yours to use whenever you want." Her smile of gratitude was worth more than all the business deals he'd ever closed. "Thank you. I might take you up on that." An awkward silence fell between them, the first since she'd moved in. Nathan was acutely aware of how the thin fabric of his workout shirt clung to his torso, and how Kim's eyes briefly drifted over him before darting away. "I should let you finish your workout," she said quickly. "I'll make coffee when I get back." As she turned to leave, Nathan called after her. "Kim," she paused, looking back at him expectantly. "About the job offer, have you decided?" Kim's expression softened. "Yes, I'll accept, if you're sure it's what you want." "It is," Nathan confirmed, ignoring the voice in his head that whispered. There were other things he wanted too, things he had no right to ask for. After she left, Nathan abandoned his workout, his concentration shattered. The penthouse felt different with Kim in it, warmer, more alive. She had been living there for nearly a month, and already he couldn't imagine the space without her. Later that morning, Nathan was reviewing contracts in his home office when his private line rang. The caller ID showed his lawyer's number. "Nathan, we have a situation," Marcus said without preamble. "Nancy's been located." Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. "Where?" "Cancun. Local authorities detained her trying to board a yacht registered to a Russian businessman. She had dyed her hair and was traveling under a false passport. Is she being extradited? That's the problem, Marcus replied. She's claiming the poisoning was an accident, a bad reaction between your medication and the wine she ordered for you. Without proof of intent, the DE may not pursue attempted murder charges. She emptied our joint account and fled the country on a false passport, Nathan countered. That's not the behavior of an innocent person. I agree, but we need more evidence. The restaurant security footage only shows her near your table, not clearly tampering with anything. Nathan rubbed his temple, feeling a headache forming. What does she want? A settlement, Marcus said grimly. She's offering to drop her claims to your company shares in exchange for $5 million and no criminal charges. That's extortion. It's also potentially cleaner than a drawn-out legal battle that could harm your company's stock price. Nathan ended the call with a promise to consider his options, though his mind was already made up. He wouldn't give in to Nancy's demands, not after what she'd done. He found Kim in the kitchen preparing lunch, the domesticity of the scene a stark contrast to the turmoil of his call. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing his expression. "You look stressed." "Nancy's been found," Nathan said simply. Kim set down the knife she'd been using, giving him her full attention. "What happens now?" "She wants a settlement. No criminal charges. Just a clean break with $5 million. And you don't want to give it to her." It wasn't a question. In the weeks they'd lived under the same roof, Kim had come to understand him in ways Nancy never had in 5 years of marriage. "No," Nathan confirmed, "but my lawyer thinks it might be easier than fighting." Kim studied him for a moment. "What would you need to fight properly?" "Evidence? Proof of intent," Nathan explained. "The security footage from the restaurant isn't clear enough." "I was there," Kim reminded him. "I saw what she did. I could testify." "It would be your word against hers," Nathan said gently. "And she would paint you as a disgruntled former employee looking for revenge." Kim's expression hardened with determination. "Then we need to find better evidence." The "we" didn't escape Nathan's notice, the simple inclusion telling him he wasn't alone in this fight. Something shifted between them in that moment, the last vestiges of employer-employee formality dissolving into a deeper partnership. That evening, with the Nancy situation temporarily set aside, Nathan decided to surprise Kim. For weeks, she had mentioned in passing her love for flowers and gardening, how the small garden at her cottage had been her sanctuary, her dream of someday owning a flower shop. "I have something to show you," he said after dinner, leading her toward a door off the main hallway that had remained locked since her arrival. "What is it?" Kim asked, curious. "Something that's been unused for too long," Nathan replied, unlocking the door and gesturing for her to enter first. Kim's gasp of surprise was exactly the reaction he'd hoped for. The room was a conservatory, its glass walls and ceiling offering a panoramic view of the twilight sky. Plants of all varieties filled the space, thriving under the special lighting system installed in the ceiling. A small fountain bubbled in the center, surrounded by comfortable seating. "Nathan," Kim breathed, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "This is incredible." "It was part of the original penthouse design," he explained, watching her delighted exploration of the space. "Nancy thought it was impractical. We never used it." Kim trailed her fingers over the leaves of a fern, her expression one of wonder. "All these plants, they're so healthy." "The building maintenance crew comes once a week to care for them," Nathan said. "But I thought maybe you'd like to take over?" Kim turned to him, her eyes shining. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Nathan confirmed. Consider it your space while you're here. You mentioned wanting to have a flower shop someday. Maybe this could be a place to develop your skills in the meantime. Kim moved toward him then, her steps deliberate, and before Nathan could process what was happening, she had wrapped her arms around him in a tight embrace. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest. "This means more than you know." Nathan stood, frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the feel of her pressed against him, the sweet scent of her hair, the warmth of her breath through his shirt. Slowly, he allowed his arms to encircle her, returning the embrace with a gentleness that belied the intensity of his emotions. When Kim pulled back, her eyes were glistening with unshed tears of gratitude. Their faces were inches apart, the air between them charged with unspoken possibility. Nathan found his gaze dropping to her lips, full and slightly parted. Time seemed to suspend as they stood there, caught in a moment of mutual recognition, an acknowledgement of the feelings that had been building between them for weeks. Nathan felt himself leaning forward imperceptibly, drawn by a force stronger than his considerable willpower. A sudden clap of thunder shattered the moment, making them both jump. The storm that had been threatening all evening had finally arrived, rain beginning to patter against the glass ceiling of the conservatory. Kim stepped back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her cheeks flushed. I have some calls to make about the cottage repairs." "Of course," Nathan replied, his voice rougher than usual. "Take all the time you need here." As Kim busied herself exploring the conservatory, Nathan withdrew, needing distance to collect himself. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, his heart racing like a teenager's after a first dance. What was happening to him? This woman had saved his life, yes, but it was more than gratitude he felt when he looked at her. It was admiration for her strength, respect for her integrity, desire for her beauty, both inside and out, and something else, something that terrified him more than any business crisis or personal betrayal ever had. The beginning of love, real love, not the arrangement he'd had with Nancy, the kind of love that made a man vulnerable in ways no prenuptial agreement could protect against. In the conservatory, Kim stood among the plants, fingertips pressed to her lips, remembering how close Nathan had been to kissing her, how much she had wanted him to. The realization left her breathless and frightened. She was living in his home, accepting his job offer, becoming dependent on him in ways that made these feelings dangerous. Yet, as thunder rolled overhead and rain streamed down the glass ceiling, Kim couldn't deny the truth any longer. She was falling for Nathan Miller, not his wealth or power or the security he represented, but the man himself. The man who remembered her offhand comment about loving gardens and gave her a conservatory. The man who saw her for who she was, not what she could do for him. The storm intensified, thunder cracking directly overhead, and Kim flinched instinctively. Without thinking, she hurried from the conservatory, seeking comfort from the one person who now represented safety to her. She found Nathan in the living room, staring out at the lightning-illuminated city. When he turned at her approach, the expression in his eyes mirrored the storm outside, powerful, elemental, barely contained. "The thunder," she said weakly, a transparent excuse for seeking his presence. Nathan nodded in understanding, opening his arms to her without a word. This time, when Kim stepped into his embrace, there was nothing platonic about the way they held each other, nothing casual in the way his hand splayed protectively across her back, or how her face turned into his neck, breathing him in. "Kim," he murmured against her hair, her name a question and a confession all at once. The ringing of the doorbell broke them apart once more, leaving them both flushed and breathing heavily. "Expecting someone?" Kim asked, her voice unsteady. Nathan shook his head, checking his watch with a frown. "No one." The doorbell rang again, more insistently. Nathan moved to the intercom, pressing the button. "Yes?" "Delivery for Ms. Rose," came the response. Nathan and Kim exchanged confused looks. "I didn't order anything," she said. Cautious after Nancy's betrayal, Nathan instructed the security desk to have the package scanned before sending it up. Minutes later, a small box arrived. Inside was a velvet jewelry box containing a pair of diamond earrings and a note in familiar handwriting. "Missing something else, waitress? Back off while you still can." Nay, the threat hung in the air between them, a stark reminder of the danger still looming in their lives, and of how much had changed since that fateful night at the gala. But as Nathan's hand closed protectively over Kim's, they both realized that whatever barriers had existed between them before had finally broken, leaving them to face what came next, not as two separate individuals, but together. Chapter 6. Passion ignites. Nancy's threat hovered over the penthouse like a gathering storm in the days that followed. Nathan enhanced building security and Kim never ventured out alone. Despite the tension, or perhaps intensified by it, their near kiss in the conservatory had fundamentally altered the current between them, creating an unspoken acknowledgement of feelings too powerful to dismiss. 2 weeks after receiving Nancy's threatening gift, Kim stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, finding comfort in the familiar ritual. Aromatic garlic and fresh herbs perfumed the air as she stirred the simmering pasta sauce. Behind her, Nathan leaned against the marble counter, watching her with quiet appreciation. "We could order in," he suggested, not for the first time. "You don't need to cook every night," Kim smiled without turning. "I enjoy it. Cooking feels normal. We could use some normal right now." It was undeniably true. Between collaborating with police on building a case against Nancy and maintaining constant vigilance, moments of ordinary life had become precious treasures. "Besides," she added, glancing over her shoulder with a soft smile, "today is special." Nathan raised a questioning eyebrow. "It's my birthday," she said simply, returning her attention to the sauce. Nathan straightened immediately. "Your birthday? Why didn't you mention it earlier?" Kim shrugged, the gesture small and self-contained. "It hasn't felt worth celebrating since my parents died." The casual revelation of another piece of her solitary past twisted something in Nathan's chest. Without conscious decision, he moved forward, gently turning her to face him, his hands warm on her shoulders. "It is worth celebrating," he said softly, his voice deepening. "You are worth celebrating, Kim." Their eyes locked, and the air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken words. Kim's lips parted slightly, and Nathan felt his carefully constructed resolve crumbling. For weeks, he'd been fighting his growing feelings, telling himself it was too soon after Nancy, that Kim deserved better than becoming a rebound, that the power imbalance between them made any relationship complicated. But in this moment, with her looking up at him with those honest eyes, all those reasons seemed distant and hollow. "Kim," he began, uncertain what he intended to say, only knowing he needed to say something. The oven timer chimed, breaking the spell. Kim stepped back, turning to remove the garlic bread, the moment slipping away like water through fingers. Nathan cleared his throat. "Give me 30 minutes, he said decisively. "Can dinner wait that long?" Surprised, Kim nodded. "Of course, but just 30 minutes, Nathan promised, already heading for the door, pulling out his phone as he went. Precisely 28 minutes later, he returned, slightly breathless. "Close your eyes," he instructed, an unfamiliar energy animating his movements. "Nathan, what? Please?" he asked, his expression holding a boyish hope she'd never seen before. Intrigued by his enthusiasm, Kim closed her eyes and allowed him to guide her by the shoulders. His touch radiated warmth through her blouse as he led her carefully through the penthouse. The scent of his cologne, cedar and bergamot, enveloped her, his proximity sending her pulse racing. "Okay," Nathan said finally. "Open your eyes." Kim gasped. The conservatory had transformed completely. Hundreds of fairy lights twinkled among the plants, creating a magical wonderland. At the center, where the fountain normally bubbled, stood a small table set with fine china, crystal glasses, and an arrangement of exotic blooms. Soft jazz flowed from hidden speakers, and champagne chilled in an ice bucket beside the table. "Nathan," Kim breathed, turning in a slow circle to absorb the enchanted scene. "How did you manage this so quickly?" "An excellent building concierge service," Nathan replied, clearly pleased by her reaction. "And while money can buy many things, it can't buy what truly matters." His eyes held hers as he spoke the last words, and Kim felt warmth bloom in her chest that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "This is the most beautiful birthday surprise I've ever received," she said softly. Nathan took her hand, leading her to the table. "The evening has just begun." They dined on the meal Kim had prepared, now served on fine china paired with exceptional champagne. Their conversation flowed with an ease that defied the tension of recent weeks, the music and lights creating an intimate sanctuary around them. As they finished their dessert, chocolate soufflés delivered from the city's finest French patisserie, Nathan reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I know you said you don't celebrate your birthday," he said, placing the box before her, "but I hope you'll accept this." Kim hesitated, remembering Nancy's threatening gift. Noting her reservation, Nathan quickly added, "I had it custom-made." No store Nancy could access was involved. Reassured, Kim opened the box and exhaled softly. Inside lay a delicate gold pendant shaped like a rose, its petals inlaid with tiny rubies that captured and reflected the fairy lights. "It's exquisite," she whispered, lifting it from its velvet nest. "The rose seemed fitting," Nathan said with a gentle smile. "And I noticed most of your belongings from the cottage incorporated touches of red. I guessed it might be your favorite color." The fact that he had observed such a detail, had paid attention to her preferences, touched Kim deeply. Nathan moved behind her to fasten the necklace, his fingers warm against the nape of her neck. Kim felt her skin tingle at his touch, her breath catching as he leaned close. "Perfect," he murmured, his breath caressing her ear. When he returned to his seat, Kim touched the pendant resting at her collarbone. "Thank you. Not just for this, but for everything. These past months have been the best of my life." Nathan completed her thought, his voice low and sincere. "Despite everything with Nancy, despite the complications, having you here has made me happier than I've been in years." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable in a way Nathan rarely allowed himself to be. Kim reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "For me, too," she confessed. "I never expected any of this when I helped you that night at the gala." "Do you regret it?" Nathan asked, a shadow of uncertainty crossing his face. "Getting involved in all this?" Kim's answer came without hesitation, her certainty absolute. Not for a second. Their eyes held, and in that moment, all the reasons they had been keeping their distance seemed to evaporate like morning mist under a strong sun. Nathan stood, still holding her hand, and drew her to her feet. With deliberate slowness, he reached up to cup her face, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheekbone with feather-light pressure. "Kim," he whispered, her name a reverence on his lips. This time, there was no interruption, no thunder, no doorbell, no timer to break the spell. Nathan's lips met hers with gentle certainty, a kiss that began as a question and evolved into an answer. Kim's hands found their way to his chest, feeling the strong beat of his heart beneath her palm as she responded with equal fervor. The kiss deepened, months of restrained desire finally finding expression. Nathan's hands threaded through her hair as Kim pressed closer, the last barriers between them dissolving in the heat of their embrace. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since I found you asleep on my couch," he admitted. Kim's laugh was breathless. "I've wanted you to, since you brought me my mother's ring." Nathan kissed her again, more urgently this time, his arms encircling her waist. To pull her flush against him, Kim responded in kind, her body arching into his, her hands exploring the broad expanse of his shoulders. "Stay with me tonight," Nathan murmured against her lips, the words both invitation and promise. In answer, Kim took his hand and led him from the conservatory toward his bedroom, her heart racing with anticipation and certainty. Complications remained, dangers lurked, uncertainties about the future persisted. But in this moment there was only Nathan and the undeniable connection between them. The bedroom lay in shadow and moonlight as they crossed the threshold together. Nathan turned. To her, his expression suddenly serious. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice rough with desire, but his eyes clear with respect. Kim's answer was to reach up and begin unbuttoning his shirt, her fingers steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "I've never been more certain of anything," she whispered. Nathan caught her hands, pressing a kiss to each palm before taking over, removing his shirt with efficient grace. Kim's breath caught at the sight of him, strong shoulders, broad chest, the lean muscle of a man who maintained himself without vanity. Their clothes fell away piece by piece, each new revelation of skin met with reverent touches and whispered appreciation. When they finally came together on Nathan's bed, it was with a tenderness that belied the intensity of their desire. "You're beautiful," Nathan breathed, his hands tracing the curves of her body with wonder. "Absolutely beautiful." Kim closed her eyes as his lips followed the path of his hands, each touch awakening sensations she had never experienced before. This was nothing like the fumbling encounters of her past. This was discovery, communion, a meeting of equals despite their different backgrounds. When Nathan finally positioned himself above her, his eyes sought hers in the darkness. "Kim," he whispered, her name a question and a vow. "Yes," she answered, drawing him down to her, their bodies joining in a moment of perfect understanding. Their lovemaking was both gentle and passionate, a physical expression of the emotional connection that had been building between them for months. They moved together in perfect rhythm, learning each other's bodies with the same attentiveness they had shown to learning each other's hearts. Later, as moonlight streamed through the windows and Kim lay curled against Nathan's chest, his heartbeat strong beneath her ear, she felt a sense of homecoming unlike anything she had experienced before. Not in her cottage, not in her childhood house, not anywhere, only here, in Nathan's arms, had she ever felt so completely where she belonged. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. Kim smiled against his skin. "That some birthday gifts are worth waiting for." Nathan's chuckle rumbled beneath her ear. "Happy birthday, Kim Rose," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her hair. As sleep claimed them both, wrapped in each other's arms, neither could know that the night had given them more than the pleasure of newfound intimacy, more than the joy of boundaries finally crossed, and feelings finally expressed. In the darkness of Nathan's bedroom, as their breathing synchronized in sleep, a new life had begun, a miracle neither believed possible, a future neither had dared to imagine. Chapter 7. Unexpected Joy. 6 weeks after Kim's birthday, autumn had begun to paint the city in hues of amber and crimson. From the penthouse windows, the transformation of the park below resembled an artist's palette, nature's last vibrant display before winter's monochrome. Inside, another transformation was taking place, though neither Kim nor Nathan had yet recognized the signs. Kim stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection with growing concern. For the third morning in a row, she had woken nauseated, barely making it to the toilet before emptying her stomach. Her face appeared paler than usual, with dark circles beneath her eyes, despite sleeping well. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, feeling a tenderness that hadn't been there before. "Kim," Nathan's voice called from the bedroom they now shared. "Are you all right?" Splashing water on her face, Kim composed herself before opening the door. "Just a little stomach bug," she replied, forcing a smile. "Nothing to worry about." Nathan studied her with concern, reaching out to brush a damp strand of hair from her forehead. "That's 3 mornings in a row. Maybe you should see a doctor." "It's probably just stress," Kim reasoned. "The police interview about Nancy yesterday wasn't exactly relaxing. The investigation into Nancy's poisoning attempt had gained momentum after her threatening message. Security footage from the restaurant had been enhanced, revealing clearer evidence of her tampering with Nathan's drink. Combined with Kim's testimony and the financial trail of Nancy's theft, the prosecutor was confident they had a strong case. "All the more reason to make sure you're healthy," Nathan countered. "I can have my personal physician make a house call this afternoon." Later, as Kim organized files in the home office that had become her workspace, a thought occurred to her. One so unexpected, so seemingly impossible, that she had dismissed it the first time it flitted through her mind days ago. But now, tallying dates on the calendar, she felt her heart rate accelerate. She was late, over 2 weeks late. "That's impossible," she whispered to the empty room. Everyone knew Nathan couldn't father children. Nancy had made sure the entire social circle was aware of his supposed deficiency, painting herself as the long-suffering wife of a sterile husband. But what if that had been just another of Nancy's lies? When the doctor arrived that afternoon, Kim requested a private consultation. The distinguished older woman listened carefully as Kim described her symptoms, nodding occasionally. And, "When was your last menstrual cycle?" she asked, making notes on her tablet. "Almost 7 weeks ago," Kim admitted. "But Dr. Winters, you should know. Nathan, Mr. Miller, has been told he can't father children. His ex-wife made that quite clear to everyone." Dr. Winters raised an eyebrow. "Has Mr. Miller ever had a fertility test?" I don't know." "Let's not jump to conclusions," the doctor said kindly. "First, let's confirm whether you're pregnant or not." The pregnancy test she administered took only minutes to develop, but to Kim, they stretched like hours. When Dr. Winters returned with the results, her expression was unreadable. "Ms. Rose," she said, sitting across from Kim, "the test is positive. You're pregnant approximately 6 weeks along." Kim's world tilted sharply, her vision tunneling as the impact of those words hit her. Pregnant with Nathan's child. A child he'd been told he could never have. That's not possible," she whispered. "I assure you it is very possible," Dr. Winters replied gently. "And if Mr. Miller has never had a medical fertility evaluation, then his ex-wife's claims were baseless." Kim's hand moved instinctively to her abdomen, tears welling in her eyes. A baby, their baby, the miracle neither of them thought possible. "Would you like me to speak with Mr. Miller?" Dr. Winters offered, "or would you prefer to tell him yourself?" "I'll tell him," Kim said softly. "But could you check that everything is okay with the baby?" Dr. Winters nodded, proceeding with a basic examination. "Everything appears normal," she confirmed afterward, writing a prescription for prenatal vitamins. "But you'll need to see an obstetrician soon for proper prenatal care." After the doctor left, Kim remained seated on the edge of the bed, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in a gust of wind. How would Nathan react? Would he be happy, shocked, disbelieving? They had never discussed children. The possibility had seemed non-existent, given what they both believed about his fertility. The sound of Nathan's return from his brief office visit jolted her from her reverie. Taking a deep breath, Kim went to meet him in the living room, the weight of her news making each step feel heavy. Nathan looked up when she entered, his expression immediately concerned. "What did Dr. Winters say? Are you all right?" Kim moved to sit beside him on the sofa, her hands clasped tightly together to stop them from trembling. "Nathan, I need to ask you something first." Sensing her seriousness, Nathan gave her his full attention. "Did you ever actually have a medical test that said you couldn't father children?" she asked directly. Surprise flashed across Nathan's face, followed by a shadow of old pain. "No," he admitted. "Nancy told me I was the reason we couldn't conceive. After 3 years of trying, she insisted the problem must be with me. When I suggested we both get tested, she became defensive, said there was no point subjecting herself to invasive procedures when it was obviously my issue. And you believed." Kim said softly. "Not an accusation, but an understanding." Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I had no reason not to at the time. We'd been trying for years with no success, and after a while the rumor that I was sterile became so widespread in our social circle that I just accepted it." Kim reached for his hand, holding it between both of hers. "Nancy lied to you, Nathan, about everything. What are you saying?" Nathan asked, his expression confused. Kim took a deep breath, her eyes meeting his directly. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Nathan didn't move, didn't speak, his face frozen in an expression of utter shock. Then slowly, comprehension dawned in his eyes. "Pregnant?" he whispered, the word both a question and a revelation. "You're pregnant with my child?" Kim nodded, tears spilling over. 6 weeks. Dr. Winters confirmed it. From my birthday night." Nathan's hand trembled as he reached out, hovering just above her still flat abdomen. "May I?" At Kim's nod, he placed his palm gently against her stomach, wonder transforming his features. "A baby," he breathed. "Our baby." Then, to Kim's surprise, Nathan slid off the sofa onto his knees before her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing his face against her abdomen. When he looked up, his eyes shone with tears. "All those years," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "believing I could never have this, that I was somehow broken." Kim cradled his face in her hands. "She lied to control you, to make you dependent on her. The problem was never you, Nathan." He rose to sit beside her again, gathering her in his arms. "A baby," he repeated, wonder still coloring his voice. "Kim, are you happy about this?" The question caught her off guard. In the shock of discovery, Kim hadn't fully examined her own feelings. But as she looked into Nathan's hopeful eyes, she knew her answer without doubt. "Yes," she said softly, a smile blooming through her tears. "I never thought I'd have a family of my own again after losing my parents. It's a miracle." "Nathan," relief and joy washed over his face as he pulled her close, cradling her against his chest. "We're going to be parents," he whispered into her hair. "You've given me a gift I thought was impossible." As they held each other, processing the magnitude of this unexpected joy, the shadow of Nancy's threats seemed to recede. This new life growing inside Kim had fundamentally changed the stakes. No longer were they just protecting themselves, but also the innocent child they had created together. Later that evening, as they lay in bed, Nathan's hand resting protectively over Kim's abdomen, he broke the comfortable silence between them. "Move in permanently," he said suddenly. "Not as my guest or my assistant, but as my partner. Make this your home, our home." Kim turned in his arms to face him. "Are you sure that's what you want? This is all happening so fast." "I've never been more certain of anything," Nathan replied, his eyes earnest in the soft lamplight. I love you, Kim rose. I think I started falling for you the moment you risked everything to save a stranger at a gala. And now you're carrying our child, a child I never thought I could have. I don't want to miss a single moment of this journey with you. The declaration of love, the first time either had spoken the words aloud, made Kim's heart soar. I love you too, she whispered, the truth of it resonating in every cell of her body. And yes, I'll stay. This is where I belong now. Nathan's kiss was gentle, reverent, a sealing of promises as profound as any vow. When they separated, his expression grew more serious. There's something else we need to discuss, he said carefully. Nancy, Kim stiffened slightly at the name. What about her? She's still a threat to us, maybe more so now. If she learns about the pregnancy, the implication hung between them, unspoken but clear. Nancy's claim of Nathan's infertility had been a cornerstone of her control over him. Proof of his fertility would be yet another of her lies exposed. We'll need to be even more careful. Kim agreed. At least until the case against her is resolved. Nathan nodded, his jaw set with determination. I won't let her harm you or our child. I promise you that, Kim. As they drifted towards sleep, Kim nestled against Nathan's chest, his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her ear. Outside, autumn winds scattered leaves across the city, nature's reminder that change, sometimes unexpected, sometimes miraculous, was the only true constant in life. And in the sanctuary of Nathan's embrace, with new life growing within her, Kim felt more hopeful about the future than she had in years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Nancy's threats, society's judgment, the complexities of blending their different worlds, they would face them together, strengthened by the unexpected joy that had transformed their lives in ways neither could have imagined just months before. Chapter 8. Shadows from the Past. The first snowfall of the season dusted Central Park with a delicate white coating, transforming the city into a winter wonderland. From the penthouse windows, Kim watched the flakes dance in the December wind, one hand resting on her growing baby bump, now visible beneath her sweater at 14 weeks pregnant. Beautiful, isn't it? Nathan said, coming to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. Kim leaned back against his chest, savoring the warmth and security of his embrace. It's magical. I've always loved the first snow. The past 2 months had been a whirlwind of appointments with top obstetricians, careful management of Kim's pregnancy announcement to Nathan's business associates, and continued work with the prosecutor on Nancy's case. The district attorney had filed formal charges of attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement, but Nancy's high-priced legal team had managed to delay proceedings with a series of motions. Despite the lingering shadow of legal battles, Kim and Nathan had settled into a rhythm of domestic happiness that still sometimes felt surreal to them both. The penthouse had transformed with Kim's touch. Family photos now adorned the walls. Comfortable throws softened the modernist furniture, and the conservatory bloomed with her careful cultivation. Most significantly, they had begun converting one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, its walls freshly painted in a soothing sage green. I was thinking, Nathan said, his hand joining hers over their growing child, we should take a baby moon. Before things get too hectic, maybe the Caribbean. The doctor said it's safe to travel until your 3rd trimester. Kim turned in his arms, smiling up at him. That sounds perfect. Some sunshine before winter really sets in. I'll have my assistant make the arrangements, Nathan replied, dropping a kiss on her forehead. Just a week, you and me, no work, no case, no distractions. The intercom buzzed, interrupting their moment. Nathan crossed to answer it, his expression shifting to concern as he listened to the building's security manager. Send him up, he said finally, his voice tight. Who is it? Kim asked, sensing his tension. Marcus, Nathan replied, naming his lawyer. He wouldn't say why over the intercom, just that it's urgent. Minutes later, Marcus Taylor stood in their living room, his normally immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. Tie slightly askew, hair ruffled, as if he'd been running his hand through it repeatedly. I apologize for coming unannounced, Marcus began, declining Nathan's offer of a drink, but this couldn't wait. What's happened? Nathan asked, his arm instinctively going around Kim's shoulders. Marcus drew a deep breath. Nancy's back in the country. The news hit like a physical blow. Kim felt Nathan tense beside her, his body going rigid. How? Nathan demanded. Her passport was flagged. She's facing charges. She entered through Canada using a different passport, one we didn't know about, Marcus explained. Border Patrol caught it too late. By the time they alerted local authorities, she had already disappeared. Kim sank onto the sofa, one hand protectively covering her belly. Does she know about the baby? Marcus's hesitation was answer enough. There was a piece in the Business Journal last week about Miller Enterprises' expansion plans. It mentioned in passing that you and Kim were expecting. It wasn't front-page news, but Nancy would be monitoring any news about me, Nathan finished, his expression grim. Damn it. There's more, Marcus continued reluctantly. She's been reaching out to board members, major shareholders, spinning a story about how you forced her out, how Kim manipulated you. She's trying to create doubt about your stability and judgment. Nathan's jaw tightened. The board knows better than to listen to her. Most do, Marcus agreed, but she's planted seeds of doubt about the paternity of Kim's child, given what was widely known about your inability to father children. Kim felt her face flush with anger and humiliation. Even now, Nancy was attempting to control the narrative, to paint her as an opportunist and their precious baby as someone else's. What exactly is she claiming? Nathan asked, his voice dangerously calm. That Kim was involved with someone else. From the beginning, that she targeted you after Nancy discovered the affair and confronted her. That the poisoning story was a fabrication to cover up Kim's involvement in corporate espionage. Marcus looked apologetic as he relayed the accusations. It's all nonsense, of course, but Nancy can be persuasive. And the timing isn't coincidental, Nathan observed bitterly. The quarterly board meeting is next week. She's trying to create chaos before then. We should cancel the Caribbean trip, Kim said quietly. We can't leave now. Nathan knelt before her, taking her hands in his. No, this is exactly why we should go. I won't let her dictate our lives with fear. The penthouse security is unbreakable, and we'll have protection at the resort. Marcus cleared his throat. Actually, having you both away might be advantageous. It gives us time to track Nancy's movements without her being able to confront you directly. And the prosecutor wants to move forward with a surprise deposition if we can locate her. After Marcus left, having promised to keep them updated on any developments, Kim and Nathan sat in troubled silence, the earlier joy of their snow-watching forgotten. I won't let her harm you or our baby, Nathan said finally, his voice resolute. Whatever I have to do, whatever it costs, she will not touch our family. Kim studied his face, seeing the determination there, but also glimpsing something else, a calculating intelligence that reminded her of the ruthless businessman Nathan could be when necessary. What are you thinking? She asked softly. Nathan's expression softened as he looked at her. That it's time to stop playing defense. Nancy has always underestimated one thing about me. I learned long ago to prepare for betrayal. 3 days later, they landed in St. Lucia, the Caribbean sun, a welcome respite from New York's winter chill. Their private villa overlooked the turquoise sea, with the iconic pitons rising majestically in the distance. Despite the beauty surrounding them, both Kim and Nathan found relaxation elusive, the spectre of Nancy's return hovering over their paradise. On their second night, as they dined on their private terrace under a canopy of stars, Nathan's secure phone rang, a line known only to Marcus and his head of security. "Nathan Miller," he answered, instantly alert. Kim watched his expression change as he listened, his eyes first widening in surprise, then narrowing with grim satisfaction. "You're certain?" he asked. "And the footage is clear?" Another pause. "Good. Proceed exactly as we discussed. I want her taken completely by surprise." When he ended the call, Nathan set the phone down carefully, his movements deliberate and controlled. "What is it?" Kim asked, her heart racing. "Did they find Nancy?" "Better," Nathan replied, a predatory smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "She found us, or thought she did. Nancy broke into my private office at Miller Enterprises tonight." Kim gasped. "What was she after?" "Access to my secure servers, financial records, corporate strategies." Nathan's smile grew. "What she doesn't know is that I've been expecting something like this since she first disappeared. Every file, every access point has been monitored and booby-trapped." "You set a trap," Kim realized, understanding dawning. "You knew she'd try to attack your business." Nathan nodded. "It was always her weakness, underestimating me, thinking I was too trusting, too distracted by work to notice her schemes. This time, when she accessed those files, she triggered a silent alarm and a complete digital record of her activities." "So security caught her?" Kim asked, hopeful that their nightmare might finally be ending. "Not yet," Nathan admitted. "She was gone before they reached the office. But we have her on camera, we have her digital fingerprints, and most importantly," he leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction, "we know exactly what she was looking for." "Which was?" "Proof of her original embezzlement, financial irregularities that would have implicated her in the first place. She knew those records existed somewhere." Nathan's expression was triumphant. "What she didn't know was that I had already secured them as insurance long before the gala. I just never had enough evidence to confront her with them without damaging the company." Kim understood then the careful chess game Nathan had been playing. "You were protecting Miller Enterprises, even from your own wife. And now she's walked right into a trap of her own making," Nathan confirmed. "Marcus is working with the prosecutor as we speak. Unauthorized access to corporate servers, attempted destruction of evidence, added to the attempted murder charges. And the existing fraud case. Nancy won't see the outside of a prison for a very long time." Relief washed over Kim, like the warm Caribbean waves on the beach below. For the first time since learning of Nancy's return, she felt the tension in her shoulders ease. "It's really almost over." Nathan reached across the table, taking her hand. In his, almost. "There's one more move to make, and it has to be done carefully. Nancy is most dangerous when cornered." "What do you mean?" "She knows she's exposed now. Her last play will be desperate, and it will be aimed at what she believes is my greatest vulnerability." Nathan's eyes held hers steadily. "You, Kim. You and our child." A chill ran through Kim despite the balmy evening air. "What are we going to do?" "Spring our own trap," Nathan replied, his voice deadly serious. "Using the one thing Nancy can't resist, the chance to hurt me publicly and salvage her reputation." As Nathan outlined his plan, Kim felt a mixture of fear and determination settle in her heart. The shadows of the past had found them even in paradise, but perhaps this time they could finally banish them for good, not just for themselves, but for the innocent life growing within her. Later that night, as she lay in Nathan's protective embrace, Kim felt their baby move for the first time, a flutter like butterfly wings against her insides. She guided Nathan's hand to the spot, watching his face transform with wonder at this tangible connection to their child. In that perfect moment, Kim made a silent vow. Nancy McGee might have been a shadow in their lives, but she would never again have the power to eclipse their happiness. Whatever came next, they would face it together for the sake of the family they were building, a family neither had dared dream possible just 1 year before. Chapter 9. Justice Served. The annual New Year's charity gala at the Grand Plaza Hotel glittered with the same opulence that had marked that fateful night nearly a year before. Crystal chandeliers refracted light across Manhattan's elite as they mingled in designer finery, champagne flutes clinking amid discussions of year-end bonuses and winter getaways. In a private room adjacent to the main ballroom, Kim Rose adjusted the emerald silk of her gown, carefully tailored to flatter her 5-month pregnant figure. The deep green enhanced her dark skin tone, while the rose-shaped diamond pendant Nathan had given her rested at her collarbone, a quiet declaration of their unity. "You look breathtaking," Nathan said, entering in an impeccably tailored tuxedo. His eyes reflected both admiration and concern as they swept over her. "Are you certain you're up for this? We can still walk away." Kim smoothed a hand over her rounded belly, where their child delivered a gentle kick, as if offering encouragement. "I'm certain. This needs to end tonight, once and for all." Their plan was calculated but necessary. After Nancy's break-in at Miller Enterprises, authorities had come tantalizingly close to apprehending her, only for her to vanish again. Nathan's security team had intercepted communications revealing her next move, a plan to publicly confront him at tonight's gala, at the very event where she had attempted to poison him a year earlier. Rather than avoiding the confrontation, Nathan had decided to control it, to create circumstances where Nancy's accusations would spectacularly backfire. The prosecutor, police, key board members, and carefully selected journalists would all be present. Every element had been arranged to ensure that when Nancy made her move, it would be her last. "Marcus confirmed everything is in place," Nathan reported, checking his watch. "The prosecutor has the warrant ready. Security has been thoroughly briefed. The moment she shows herself, we'll be prepared." Kim nodded, adjusting Nathan's bow tie with practiced ease, a domestic gesture that belied the evening's tension. "And if she doesn't appear?" "Then we enjoy supporting children's cancer research," Nathan replied with a small smile. "Either way, she doesn't steal another moment of our happiness." Kim rose on tiptoes to kiss him softly. "For our family," she whispered. "For our family," he echoed, his hand resting protectively over their child. The main ballroom had transformed since the previous year's gala. Though the chandeliers and fine china remained, the energy had shifted, warmer, more genuine. Under Nathan's direction, Miller Enterprises had refocused its philanthropy toward organizations with greater transparency and impact. Tonight's event would raise millions for pediatric cancer treatment, a cause that had become personally meaningful to Nathan since learning of Kim's pregnancy. As they entered, all eyes turned to them, New York's most discussed couple. Though some society matrons still whispered disapprovingly about their unconventional relationship, most had been won over by their evident devotion and by Nathan's reinvigorated leadership of his company, which had achieved record profits under his more engaged direction. "Mr. Miller, Ms. Rose." The mayor approached, champagne in hand. "Remarkable event. The Children's Hospital is profoundly grateful for your foundation's matching grant." "The pleasure is ours," Nathan replied, his arms steady around Kim's waist. Kim actually spearheaded the initiative. Conversation flowed easily as more guests approached, each interaction carefully monitored by plainclothes security personnel strategically positioned throughout the room. Nathan maintained a relaxed demeanor, but Kim felt the alertness in his body, the way his eyes continually scanned the entrances. 2 hours into the event, as dinner was being served, Nathan's security chief approached discreetly. "Sir." "Confirmed." Sighting at the east entrance. She's altered her appearance, but facial recognition provides positive identification. Nathan nodded almost imperceptibly. Proceed as planned. No one moves until my signal. The security chief disappeared into the crowd as Nathan turned to Kim. She's here, he murmured. Ready? Kim squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze with determination. Completely, Nathan rose, tapping his glass for attention. The room quieted as he began his address, thanking guests for their generosity and speaking passionately about the evening's cause. Kim observed the room, noting the prosecutor slipping into position near the east doors, plainclothes officers strategically shifting to block potential exits. As many of you know, Nathan continued, this past year has brought unexpected challenges and even greater blessings. His eyes met Kim's with genuine warmth. Tonight, Kim and I are pleased to announce an additional personal contribution of $5 million to establish a permanent research endowment for rare pediatric cancers. Applause rippled through the crowd, providing perfect cover for Nancy's entrance. Even with her newly dyed black hair and cosmetic alterations, Kim recognized her immediately. The cold calculation in her eyes unmistakable as she navigated through the tables toward the front of the room. How touching! Nancy's voice sliced through the applause, silencing the room instantly. My husband, always so generous with my money. A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests as they recognized the woman who had vanished under a cloud of scandal months before. Nathan remained composed, exactly as they had planned. Nancy, he acknowledged coolly. I'm surprised to see you here, given the outstanding warrants for your arrest. Nancy's laugh cut like broken glass as she moved closer, stopping just beyond arm's reach. Warrants based on lies and fabrications. I've come to set the record straight. By all means, Nathan replied, gesturing to the room. You have everyone's attention. It was a calculated risk, giving Nancy the platform she craved. But Nathan knew her well enough to predict that given enough rope, she would hang herself with her own words. You've all been deceived, Nancy began, addressing the stunned crowd. By him, by his waitress-turned-mistress, by this entire charade. She turned to face Nathan directly. You claim I tried to poison you. The truth is, you've been poisoning our marriage for years with your inadequacies, your inability to give me a child, your obsession with work over family. Kim watched as Nancy's carefully applied veneer of righteous indignation began to crack, revealing the bitterness beneath. And now you parade around with this. Nancy gestured dismissively toward Kim's pregnant form. This obvious deception. Everyone in this room knows you can't father children, Nathan. Did you really think people would believe this child is yours? Nathan's expression remained impassive. Is that why you returned, Nancy? To question the paternity of my child? I came back to expose the truth, Nancy snapped. About her, about the embezzlement you're trying to pin on me, about all of it. She withdrew an envelope from her clutch. I have proof, financial records showing your mismanagement, your theft from our accounts. Those would be the forged documents you created the night you broke into my office, Nathan replied evenly. December 15th, at approximately 11:43 p.m. We have you on camera, Nancy. Nancy's composure faltered. You were supposed to be in the Caribbean. We were, Nathan confirmed. But unlike you, I learned long ago not to underestimate my opponents. The trap was closing, but Kim knew the most dangerous moment still lay ahead. Nancy's eyes darted around the room, noticing for the first time the strategic positioning of security personnel, the prosecutor watching intently from the sidelines. You set me up, Nancy hissed, her voice dropping to ensure only Nathan and Kim could hear. You orchestrated all of this. No, Nancy, Nathan replied quietly. You set yourself up the moment you decided that killing me was easier than divorcing me honestly. He withdrew a small remote from his pocket, pressing a button. The massive screens erected for the charity presentations flickered to life, displaying enhanced security footage from the previous year's gala, The entire room watched in stunned silence as the footage clearly showed Nancy slipping a vial of powder into Nathan's drink, her movements furtive but unmistakable. "The police found the remaining poison in your private safe," Nathan continued, his voice carrying in the hushed room, "along with detailed records of the $3.7 million you embezzled from Miller Enterprises over 3 years. Nancy's face contorted with rage as she realized the extent of the trap. With a sudden movement, she lunged toward Kim, a small blade appearing in her hand, seemingly from nowhere. "If I'm going down, so is your precious new family," she snarled. Everything happened in an instant. Security converged from all sides, but Nathan was faster, stepping between Nancy and Kim, deflecting Nancy's arm with a precision that spoke of his recent self-defense training. The knife clattered to the floor as 2 officers tackled Nancy, quickly subduing and handcuffing her. "Nancy McGee, you're under arrest for attempted murder, corporate espionage, embezzlement, and assault with a deadly weapon," the lead detective announced, reciting her rights as they led her away. Nancy's final look of pure hatred burned into Kim's memory as she was escorted from the ballroom, her screams about betrayal and revenge fading as the doors closed behind her. A stunned silence held for several heartbeats before the room erupted in chaotic conversation. Nathan turned immediately to Kim, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Are you all right?" "The baby?" Kim nodded, her hand protectively covering her belly. "We're fine. I anticipated. Something desperate, but a knife." The prosecutor approached, his expression grave but satisfied. "Mr. Miller, Ms. Rose, precisely executed, if somewhat more dramatic than anticipated. We'll need statements from you both, but it can wait until tomorrow. The evidence is overwhelming. She won't receive bail this time." As the initial shock subsided, Marcus navigated through the crowd to join them. "The press has been managed," he reported. "The approved statement about Nancy's embezzlement and attempt on your life is being distributed, along with evidence of her December break-in. Board members present are already expressing their full support." Nathan nodded his thanks, but his attention remained focused on Kim. "Let's get you home." As they made their way toward the exit, guests parted respectfully, many offering quiet words of support. The events had unfolded largely as planned, but the emotional toll was evident in the slight tremor of Kim's hand as Nathan helped her with her coat. In the privacy of their car, Kim finally released the breath she felt she'd been holding all evening. "It's really over," she whispered, leaning into Nathan's embrace. "It's over," he confirmed, pressing a kiss to her temple. "She can't hurt us anymore." The city lights streaked past the windows as they drove in contemplative silence, each processing the night's events. When they reached the penthouse, Nathan dismissed the security detail for the night. The need for constant vigilance finally lifted. As Kim changed out of her gala attire, she caught sight of her reflection in the bedroom mirror, her hand resting on the swell of her belly, Nathan's rose pendant gleaming at her throat. So much had changed in a year. From waitress to expectant mother, from struggling to survive to helping direct millions in charitable giving, from solitary existence to deeply loved partner. Nathan appeared in the doorway, watching her with a tenderness that still sometimes caught her by surprise. "A penny for your thoughts," he said softly. Kim turned to him with a gentle smile. "I was just thinking about how completely life can transform in the space of a year." Nathan crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "For the better, I hope." "Beyond anything I could have imagined," Kim confirmed, leaning into his embrace. They stood together in comfortable silence until Nathan stepped back slightly, his expression suddenly serious. "There's something I've been waiting to do," he said. "I wanted to wait until we were truly free of Nancy, until there were no more shadows hanging over us." Kim watched, puzzled, as he reached into his pocket and lowered himself to one knee before her, opening a small velvet box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Kim rose, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his eyes. You saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me what real love looks like. Selfless, brave, honest. You're carrying our child. A miracle I never thought possible. His voice caught slightly before he continued. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Tears of joy spilled onto Kim's cheeks as she nodded, too overcome for words at first. Yes, she finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, Nathan, I will marry you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, the central diamond surrounded by small rubies in the shape of a rose, Kim felt their baby kick strongly, as if offering approval of this new commitment. I think someone else is happy about this decision. She laughed softly, placing Nathan's hand over the spot. Nathan's expression of wonder as he felt their child move beneath his palm was worth all the trials they had endured. Our family, he murmured, rising to gather her in his arms. As they stood together in the quiet of their bedroom, the city glittering beyond their windows, Kim realized that the revenge Nathan had taken against Nancy wasn't about punishment or even justice in the traditional sense. The true revenge, the perfect revenge, had been in reclaiming his life, his ability to trust, his capacity to love, in creating a family built on truth rather than manipulation, on partnership rather than control. Justice had been served, not just legally, but in the deeper meaning of the word. Things had been set right, balance restored, truth vindicated. And as Kim rested in the arms of the man she loved, their child growing strong between them, she understood that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying an enemy, but about building something so beautiful that the enemy's actions become nothing more than a distant memory, powerless to cast shadows on the bright future ahead. Chapter 10. Love's Triumph. The first rays of dawn filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the private hospital suite, casting a golden glow over Kim as she cradled one of her newborn sons. In the chair beside her, Nathan held their other son, his expression one of pure wonder as he gazed at the tiny face nestled against his chest. "They're perfect," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely perfect." Kim smiled tiredly. The exhaustion of 18 hours of labor overshadowed by the overwhelming joy of finally holding their children. "They are our beautiful boys." The twins had arrived 3 weeks early, but in perfect health, identical in almost every way, with their father's strong jawline already hinted at in their tiny faces, and their mother's warm brown skin tone. At 6 pounds each, they were robust and strong-lunged, their cries announcing their arrival to the world with unmistakable determination. "Have you decided on the names?" asked Dr. Winters, who had stayed through her entire shift and beyond to deliver the babies she had first confirmed in Kim's womb months ago. Kim and Nathan exchanged a look of quiet understanding. They had discussed names extensively, but had waited to make the final decision until they met their sons. "This little one," Kim said, looking down at the baby in her arms with his tiny hand wrapped around her finger, "is Thomas Nathan Miller, after my father and his. And this," Nathan continued, gently adjusting the blue cap on his son's head, "is Michael James Miller, after Kim's grandfather and my uncle, who was like a father to me." Dr. Winters nodded approvingly. "Strong names for strong boys. Congratulations to you both." She made some final notes in the chart before quietly slipping out, leaving the new family to their private moment of bonding. The months leading to this day had been a whirlwind of change and preparation. After Nancy's arrest and subsequent denial of bail, the legal proceedings had moved swiftly. With overwhelming evidence of her crimes, the poisoning attempt, embezzlement, corporate espionage, and her final assault with the knife at the charity gala, Nancy had eventually accepted a plea deal to avoid a public trial that would have further destroyed her reputation. She now resided in a medium-security women's prison, serving a 12-year sentence. The threat finally and completely removed, Kim and Nathan had focused on preparing for their children's arrival. The nursery had been completed. A beautiful space with hand-painted murals of enchanted forests covering the walls, twin cribs crafted by artisans from sustainable wood, and a comfortable window seat where Kim had spent countless hours imagining, holding her babies while watching the city below. Their engagement had been relatively short, with a small, intimate ceremony held in the penthouse conservatory just 3 months after Nathan's proposal. Kim had been 7 months pregnant, radiant, in a simple ivory dress that accommodated her growing belly, carrying a bouquet of roses she had cultivated herself. Only their closest friends had attended, including the waitress who had slipped Nathan Kim's address that fateful day, now the manager of the restaurant and one of Kim's dearest friends. The wedding had been perfect in its simplicity and sincerity, a celebration of love that had overcome every obstacle placed in its path. Nathan's vows had brought tears to every eye in the room as he promised to cherish the family Kim had given him, a family he had once believed impossible. Now, as morning, light strengthened across the Manhattan skyline visible from the hospital windows, that family was complete. The twins, born just 5 minutes apart, represented everything that had once been stolen from them both. Kim's chance at family after losing her parents, Nathan's opportunity for fatherhood after years of believing he couldn't have children. "I never thought I could feel this way," Nathan admitted, gently rocking Michael, "like my heart is simultaneously too full and somehow expanding even more." Kim understood completely. The love she felt for her sons was overwhelming, all-encompassing, and yet it didn't diminish her love for Nathan in the slightest. Rather, it amplified it, seeing him become the father she had always known he would. A soft knock at the door preceded the entrance of a nurse, carrying 2 small bottles. "Ready to try feeding them again?" she asked kindly. Kim had decided to combine breastfeeding with bottle feeding to allow Nathan to participate fully in nurturing their sons. Now, as they each fed a baby, the symmetry of their new family struck her profoundly. This was always meant to be. These boys, this man, this life they had created together. "I have something for you," Nathan said after the nurse had helped them burp the twins and departed. Carefully balancing Michael in one arm, he reached into the overnight bag beside his chair and withdrew a small velvet box. "Nathan," Kim protested softly, "you've already given me so much, the engagement ring, the wedding band, these beautiful children." "This isn't from me," Nathan explained, his expression growing tender. "Not exactly." Curious, Kim adjusted Thomas in her arms to accept the box, opening it one-handed. Inside lay a delicate gold locket, vintage in design and clearly an heirloom. "It was my mother's," Nathan explained, "and her mother's before that. It's meant to hold pictures of your children." He reached over to open it, revealing that it had already been fitted with tiny photographs of the ultrasound images of the twins. "My father gave it to her the day I was born. I've been saving it for today." Tears welled in Kim's eyes as Nathan carefully fastened the locket around her neck, its weight settling beside the rose pendant she still wore daily. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you for sharing this piece of your family history with me." "You are my family history now," Nathan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You, Thomas, and Michael. You're my past, present, and future all at once." As if understanding the significance of the moment, both babies chose that instant to open their eyes, identical warm brown eyes that already held hints of their father's intensity and their mother's kindness. "Look at that," Kim marveled. "They're both awake at the same time." "Taking in the world together," Nathan observed. just as they'll go through life, supporting each other like we'll support them. The next few days passed in a blur of feeding, schedules, diaper changes, and the countless visitors who came to welcome the newest members of the Miller family. Nathan's board members arrived with extravagant gifts, their former reservations about Kim long forgotten as they cooed over the twins. Kim's friends from her waitressing days brought more modest but equally heartfelt presents, marveling at the turn her life had taken. On the day they were scheduled to leave the hospital, Nathan arrived early, dressed more formally than usual. "Is everything okay?" Kim asked, noticing his serious expression as she finished dressing Thomas in his going-home outfit. "Everything is perfect," Nathan assured her, taking Michael from the bassinet to dress him in the matching outfit. "But I did want to talk to you about something before we take the boys home." Once both twins were dressed and sleeping peacefully in their bassinets, Nathan took Kim's hands, leading her to sit on the edge of the hospital bed. "This past year has shown me what truly matters in life," he began, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on her knuckles. "Before you, I was successful by every external measure, but empty inside. You changed that, Kim. You saved my life that night at the gala, but more importantly, you showed me how to really live." Kim squeezed his hands, touched by his words but unsure where he was going with this. "I've been thinking about your cottage," Nathan continued, "the one you worked so hard for, that represented independence and security for you." "It's been fully repaired," Kim said, still confused. After Nancy's arrest, they had hired contractors to completely restore the small house, including a new roof, updated plumbing, and a fresh coat of paint. "It has," Nathan confirmed, "and I've been thinking about what to do with it." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a folded document. "This is for you to consider." Kim accepted the paper, unfolding it to reveal architectural plans. As she studied them, her eyes widened in recognition. The drawings showed her cottage, but expanded and renovated, surrounded by greenhouses and gardens. A sign in the illustrated entrance read, "Rose Blooms, Florist and Botanical Garden." "Nathan," she breathed, looking up at him in astonishment. "Is this your dream?" Nathan finished for her. "Your flower shop? I know you love working with me at Miller Enterprises, but I also know you've never abandoned your dream of having your own business someday." He gestured to the plans. "The cottage property has enough land for a modest botanical garden and a high-end florist shop. You could cultivate the rare flowers you love and share them with others." Tears filled Kim's eyes as she looked back at the plans, seeing how thoughtfully they had been designed. The cottage itself preserved but enhanced, the surrounding land transformed into something beautiful that would sustain itself financially. "You would still be a full partner in Miller Enterprises," Nathan continued. "This would just be something that's entirely yours, a legacy for our sons that comes from you, independent of my company." Kim was speechless, overwhelmed by the depth of understanding this gift represented. Nathan hadn't just remembered her dream. He had found a way to make it viable, respecting both her desire for independence and her commitment to their partnership. "You don't have to decide anything now," Nathan added quickly. "The plans are just a starting point. You could change anything you want, or we could forget the whole idea if it's not what you want." Kim rose from the bed, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him close. "It's perfect," she whispered against his ear. "Absolutely perfect. Like everything else you've given me." Nathan held her tightly, his relief evident in the way his body relaxed against hers. "I want you to have everything, Kim. The life you deserve, the dreams you've worked for. I never want you to feel like you gave anything up to be with me." "I haven't given up anything," Kim assured him, pulling back to meet his gaze. "I've only gained love, family, security, happiness." She glanced at their sleeping sons. "And these precious gifts." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Kim marveled at how perfectly their life together had unfolded, despite, or perhaps because of, the obstacles they had overcome. From their first meeting under the most dire circumstances to this moment of pure joy, their story had been one of unexpected blessings and destined connections. The hospital staff helped them settle the twins into their car seats, fussing over the babies one last time before saying goodbye. As Nathan carefully carried one car seat and Kim the other, they stepped out into the bright spring sunshine, where their driver waited with the car that would take them home. "Ready?" Nathan asked, pausing before they got in. Kim looked at her husband, this man who had gone from stranger to savior to lover to father of her children, and at her sons, tiny miracles who represented everything she had once thought impossible. Her hand went to the locket at her throat, this newest symbol of the family they had created together. "Ready," she confirmed with a radiant smile. As the car pulled away from the hospital, carrying the Miller family toward their home and future, Kim reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. A year and a half ago, she had been a waitress struggling to make ends meet, selling her mother's ring to save a poisoned stranger. Now, she was Kim Miller, mother of twins, wife to a man who cherished her completely and about to embark on building her own business while maintaining her role in his. Life had a way of coming full circle, she realized. The ring she had sacrificed had been returned. The family she had lost had been replaced with one of her own creation. The kindness she had shown to a stranger in need had been repaid 1,000-fold in love and devotion. And as Nathan reached across the car seat to take her hand, their sleeping sons between them, Kim knew with absolute certainty that this moment, this family, this love, was what true happiness felt like. Perfect, complete, and enduring. Whatever challenges parenthood might bring, whatever new chapters life might write for them, they would face them together. Nathan, Kim, Thomas, and Michael. The family that began with an act of compassion had been forged through adversity and now stood unbreakable, bound by a love powerful enough to heal old wounds, overcome every obstacle, and create miracles where once there had been only emptiness. It was, by any measure, a perfect ending, and also the most beautiful beginning.